Now let's see how the disk is actually partitioned. So sometimes what happens is, in a single computer you might want to run more than one file system or more than one operating system. In that case, we take the entire hard disk and we divide into something called as partitions or volumes. Okay, so let us assume that these are the various partitions we have divided the entire a hard disk into. Now after finding out all these, after doing all these partitions, in every partition we might load one operating system. For example, here I might load Windows and here I might load Linux, something like this. Then now the main challenge is, how will we know where the code related to Windows is in the hard disk and where is the code related to Linux is, and which one to use. So for that reason we are going to have BIOS, basic input output system. So this is a small piece of code which will be present on the ROM. See, whenever you turn on your computer for the first time, you are not going to have anything in the main memory because it is volatile, and unless you have anything in the main memory, your CPU cannot execute any instructions. For that reason, in order to break this loop, we are going to have some piece of code which is going to be present on the ROM, and this piece of code is called as BIOS, right? Now this BIOS is going to fetch the first block, which is nothing but the 0th block from the hard disk. Always it is going to get the 0th block, the first block in the hard disk, right? Now generally the first block in the hard disk is MBR, master boot record, right? There are various names given to this, but the most generic name is master boot record. Now this BIOS is going to load the 0th block from the hard disk into the main memory. Now from that main memory, wherever it is loaded, our CPU will start executing from the first instruction of MBR, right? Now it will check whether this MBR is valid or not. So generally MBR always starts with a standard number, some magic number, using which you will know whether it is a right MBR or not, which means whether the disk is formatted or not. Okay, now once you are sure that this is right, then the MBR will tell you, or whenever you are booting up the system, you will sometimes get the message like this: which operating system you want to load, Windows or Linux or whatever. Now all those messages, the related code will be present in the MBR. Now MBR will also contain something called as the partition table, right? Now in this particular block we are going to have something called as partition table. Now partition table is going to tell you where each partition is going to begin, whether this one, and then the second one is going to begin from here, like that. So every entry in the partition table is going to tell you where each partition is going to begin, and also it contains information about how many partitions are there. Now in case if you represent one of the partition as the active partition, then always it will directly go to that particular partition and start executing. For example, if you say that this is the active partition that you always use, then the operating system, your computer will load the first block of this one, and the first block of every partition is going to be boot block. Now this boot block will know where the operating system code is present and how to load that code. So all these entries we shall see later. So in this diagram, what I want you to understand in this video is that BIOS is going to load MBR, and MBR is going to contain all the information about how many partitions there are and what is the starting address of each partition, right? And also it can show you a menu about which partition you want to choose and work, which means either you want to load Windows or Linux or whatever operating system you have. And then it will also give you where it is going to start and how many partitions are there. That's it. And then coming to the each partition or the volume, the structure of it depends on the type of file system you are going to use. Depending on the type of file system, all these blocks will be defined. In the next video I'll show you what is the meaning of each block, right? Or if you want, we shall see all these details in the next video. Okay, fine.